Okay, so the title of this video is, in my mind, pretty self-explanatory, but I'll do a very quick intro here and just jump right into it. So, many of you have already seen the Nick Fuentes, Piers Morgan interview. It was streamed live. By the end of the stream, I think it already had 2 million views, so it's already been very popularly consumed. And it was pretty interesting because I do share a lot of Nick Fuentes' views in their essence, but the way that he appeared on this interview was interesting because he made no attempt to try and market it or sell it. And who am I to tell him what to do? He's already wildly successful, but I think that there is still a little bit of runway for his views to come into the mainstream. And while I think they are very close to coming into the mainstream, I think it's a little bit too early to feel that he is above um, trying to market it and sell it further to gain more traction. I think that he is living very much in his own echo chamber and his own bubble, and a lot of his internal confirmation bias and the confirmation bias of those around him make him feel that uh, he really has nothing to defend and nothing to gain through sitting and coherently presenting his points against, um, I mean, for the most part, reasonable opposition. I would say that Piers Morgan did present every challenge reasonably, and it wasn't necessarily biased, it was just reflective of Piers Morgan's own views. That said, um, I don't think by any means did Piers Morgan um, kind of, uh, I mean, he didn't dispel any of Nick Fuentes' points. He didn't dismantle them. He didn't disprove them. And he didn't at any point really present a reasonable counter argument to any of Nick's points. But what was interesting for me, even though I share a lot of Nick Fuentes' views, or in their essence, I share them, and in their spirit, I still felt a little bit of my skin crawling back or kind of being on edge, like, I don't know that this is the time to say these things how you're saying them. So, in this video, what I'm going to try and do is not to water down any of Nick Fuentes' views, but rather to present them with some rhetorical styling, some uh, velvet gloves, let's just say. I'll present the same exact views that he has, but with velvet gloves so that they are a little bit more palatable. So we are going to just jump right into it. I actually kind of fast forwarded through the first 10 minutes. There's, Piers Morgan put together a montage of people's opinions on him. The first question was basically Coleman Hughes saying that, oh, you're two-faced and you play softball and kind of moderate your tone in some settings, and then you go full mask off in other settings. To which he, to which Nick Fuentes neither really confirmed or denied. He just said, yeah, I mean, you know, I accept that, but at the same time, Coleman is he's not a trusted source. So there was that, and then Piers, of course, asked him about his background and just saying, oh, well, where were you raised? Where were you born? What was your family life like? Stuff like that. Of course, most of us know Nick Fuentes, born and raised in Chicago, went to Boston College, dropped out, canceled, and I think that Piers kind of used that as the baseline, kind of the foundation on which he built, or he called back to for every single one of his points, which to me, I mean, whatever. All is fair in love and war. So Let's just jump into the first question that Piers kind of leveled against him.
So your view of immigration, and we'll get to the specifics about your views on immigration, are they not affected at all by the fact that if it wasn't for immigration, you wouldn't exist as an American?
Well, I would.
Okay, I'm going to answer on behalf of Nick Fuentes so that it can sound a lot better than he actually presents it. And mind you, I don't agree with absolutely everything that Nick Fuentes says, but I think it's valuable always to understand your perspective, understand other people's perspective, understand how they got to their perspectives, and analyze how you got to yours, and understand the effects, both upstream and downstream, of those backgrounds and those variables to reach a point of like, okay, I understand how that person got there. So, um, this is, I'm not going to water down any of his views. I'm just going to present them as is. And those views are not in every instance of this video my personal views, but I understand how he got to his views. So I'm going to present them in what I feel is a much better way than he did. And I don't think that's because he's incapable of presenting the views in the manner that I will, but rather that he didn't see any need to. He just feels like I am fucking Nick Fuentes. I'm my presence is imminent. I don't need to try and sell anymore. I am an immovable object, and you know, love me or hate me, I don't give a fuck. Which I don't think. I mean, to an extent, I understand where he's coming from, but I think that his perspective still needs a little bit more selling for it to be, you know, mainstreamed and eventually accepted. So, in response to, um, you know, Piers Morgan challenging him on his negative views towards immigration. Now, I understand that um, mainstream media, at least mainstream conservative media, has painted immigration as this huge net negative. And while I am an immigrant, I'm going to pose this question. I didn't immigrate. My parents immigrated. They immigrated legally, as a result of which they had to endure application processes, scrutiny, um, financial verification, um, a queue that delayed their immediate immigration for political and for socio-political reasons, and as a result, their immigration was delayed. It took time. It, of course, involved years of preparation to put forward a acceptable application, and as a result, they immigrated. They followed all of the laws to establish themselves, to eventually become naturalized, and then to maintain their legal status. Of course, once you're naturalized, I don't think that's revocable at this point in time, though that might be in question. But nonetheless, they did everything above board, and subsequently, they submit applications for our family, who is to this day still back overseas, and um, I think, if I am to believe um, what my father shared with me, uh, the wait was over a decade to even hear back about it, and at which point a lot of things changed, a lot of things were much difficult. The long and short of it is they never immigrated. So if they had received a very quick response, or had they just applied for a visitor visa or a tourist visa, and then they were accepted and came here and overstayed that visa, a lot of things would be very different. And due to the reality that we were not willing to take on those illegal steps, we uh, accepted the legal, lawful way, and it didn't work in our favor. again, there probably was an option to bring them here illegally or in a manner that would eventually lead them to be illegally present. So, if we're to be legal absolutists, okay, the 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 first crime would basically throw into doubt everything else that precedes it. So, if I were to break into your house, okay, and grab a slice of turkey and eat it, the act of grabbing a slice of turkey and eating it is not necessarily illegal, but the fact that you broke into my house makes your consumption of my turkey illegal and an affront to me. So, in terms of legal absolutism, I can understand the perspective. Now, aside from that, let's say that you enter or remain present illegally, okay? The crime of Genesis, of course, your introduction to this country illegally, becomes all the more egregious and compounded by further crimes should you commit them. So, any case of DUI, of felony, of murder, drug distribution or abuse, um, crimes that in general inflict a societal ill or inflict societal injury to the citizens and legal occupants of a country, um, the sin and the weight of the crime is compounded by the sin of their illegal presence, like the unlawfulness of their illegal presence. So that completely makes sense. If I am to believe the mainstream conservative media, and I'm to believe that 10 million illegal immigrants came into the country under Joe Biden's law or rule, um, and a lot of them were just shipped up from Texas into NYU dormitories in New York, putting enormous financial burden, um, then in what world am I supposed to view that as a net positive? Should I hate individuals? Probably not. Should I hate uh, large groups? Probably not. And is the essence of my hatred due to their ethnicity or nationality? In essence, no. What makes me or Nick ponder the question is under what government system does it make sense for me to accept and rationalize um, this disregard of the law? Because I am a legal absolutist. So if it's wrong, it is wrong, and that is pretty much where the conversation ends. Now, in terms of legal immigration, now, if the social uh, factors that are at play mean that we are lowering the bar um, of uh, acceptable applicants for legal immigration, I need someone to articulate to me why it is beneficial to say, you know what, I am the Lakers. My standard used to be Kobe Bryant, Shaq, LeBron, uh, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. But as Lakers administration, I am going to articulate to you right now why I should accept. Uh, Geez, I've been so out of the NBA for ages now. Why should I say that no, we're going to lower our standard and we're going to start giving big contracts to people from the G League? Just articulate it for me. Just talk to me and tell me why. Okay, if you want to say it's because it's the nice thing to do, it's the right thing to do, well, you're telling me that we are going to subvert national and societal interests to embody a moral cause. Now, if that were the democratically elected legislation that is supported by the citizens, that is to say, that citizens were like, you know what, I am willing to compromise, sacrifice, to undertake some kind of benevolence, okay? And again, I really want to stress these are not my views, okay? But I'm just taking them through Nick Fuentes' views. America has nothing to make up for. America has nothing to apologize for. America has no wars to pay the reparations for. They hold no moral culpability or responsibility. But any political policy that is trying to balance the scales of American harm or whatever, trying to balance or trying to repair or ameliorate the negative social, political, financial situations of immigrants who would otherwise, were they not fleeing persecution, tyranny, just collapsed economies, if they were from Norway and they were just poor, financially unstable, uh, with criminal backgrounds, yada yada yada, they would be denied. But because America is undertaking, in Nick Fuentes' opinion, some kind of philanthropy with whose tax money and with whose consent is America and American immigration policy making this philanthropic giving? It doesn't make sense. And I agree. If it is purely for the benefit of America, America should close its borders, should adopt complete isolationism, should pull out troops from everywhere in the world. They should wrap up all of their foreign military bases and dismantle them. They need to allow BRICS nations to uh, un to delink uh, their petrol exports from the dollar. But again, if there's immigration happening, people who are not really qualified to come are coming just because they have it rough in their countries, that means that you're just doing them a charity by letting them come over. You can't do charity with other people's money. You can't do charity with other people's country. So, in that legal and moral absolutism that exists in a vacuum, I understand Nick Fuentes' uh, perspective. And I think that is the salient argument that he should have put forward. However, however, I understand that it doesn't exist in a vacuum. And to be frank, I can't blame Nick for not addressing those global historical factors because Piers Morgan, nor does anybody else, pressure anti immigrationists, uh, border absolutists to consider that context. That never comes up in conversation. I don't know why, but it never comes up in conversation. And it is the only salient point that can be used to disarm um, the border absolutist. So I also understand from Nick Fuentes' perspective, 24, 28, or whatever, however old he is. Okay, he just does not give a fuck that America is the cause of why Cuba has it so hard. He doesn't give a fuck that Mexico, the entire Mexican political establishment, has been a puppet of America. He doesn't care that Afghanistan was destabilized by America unjustly. He doesn't care that Iraq and the entire Middle East was destabilized by America. So he doesn't understand why, if he's not the one that caused the harm, why him and his America has to pay the price. And I think that that's just part of American exceptionalism. Rules don't necessarily need to apply to me. And tell me any other country who is being held to the same standard of perpetual, big picture, downstream end product accountability and the responsibility to accommodate for it and repair it. And those are fair points. But he didn't make those fair points. So he just went ham, which I don't think was the right move. So that's nice, Fuentes.
Non-white countries, it's transforming what America is. And again, that's the distinction. That's what makes it unacceptable.
I always believe.
Okay, so the other spoke to his anti-immigration wheel is just basically, the great replacement theory. Okay. Um, I want this country to be white. Why the fuck is that a bad thing? I am white. I want a country that's white. Why are we turning it into Indian? Why are we turning it into Mexican? Why are we turning whatever? I understand that. Cultures don't like to mix. I don't think that it is beneficial because at the end of the day, like Indians, they're you get two Indians by themselves, they'll be like, oh, American women, they just dress like sluts. You get an African person, oh, American food, they don't season their shit. Their kids are running around. They don't listen to their parents. Mexicans, oh, Americans are fucking lazy. They don't know what a hard day's work is. And they all disrespect their elders and they throw them in nursing homes. And then white people have a bunch of shit to talk against all of the other cultures. Cultures don't like to intermingle. They can experience each other. They can visit each other. They can sample each other. But I don't think that they are made to cohabitate because you're going to have a neighbor who doesn't follow your same social standards, personal standards, moral standards, and you don't follow his moral, personal, etc. standards, and it's just constantly water and oil. The two will never mix. They don't mix. They can do the appearance of mixing, okay? But when rubber meets the road, people don't like each other. Cultures are cultures because they are different. So I agree with that. I don't understand why, if I don't, I'm okay. Something that is clear. I'm obviously not Kenyan. Okay. I'm also not one of those people who are like, oh, African IQ level is low because mud houses, whatever. I can have the social, intellectual rigor to say that Kenya, for example, or okay, here's a very simple example. In America, houses are majority built wood frame and plywood, nails, uh, drywall. Okay, I came to understand the way that houses are built, and I was like, wow, America's such a shithole. Overseas, we build out of concrete, steel, rebar, brick, mortar, plaster. Stuff that you can leave it exactly as is, if well maintained, will last for 200, 300 years. A, a wood frame house is not lasting 300 years. But at the same time, I grow to understand that, for example, America has extreme uh, poles in terms of temperatures. You'll have a place that will see 95 degrees in the summer, but also will see 8 degrees Fahrenheit in the winter. And although to my naked eye I don't appreciate it, those temperature extremes cause structures to expand and contract. You want something that has flexibility. So there is no ultimate truth to what the highest standard of living is. The standard of living is dictated, and the progress of technology is dictated by the needs of the individuals in that particular climate, region, area. Okay? You're not going to blame Nairobi, who does not have any, like major sea or ocean shores, that they don't have wave breaking uh, blocks on their shoreline. They don't have a shoreline. Why do I need to measure my perception of their sophistication by American standards? It doesn't make sense. Okay? But at the same time, where I have established that I am not inherently racist to Kenyans or Nairobians, but I don't want my kid to go to school and be taught how to coat a fruit basket with cow dung. I just don't want that. I'm sorry, I don't want it. Yes, I'm sure it's sterile. I'm sure it's very appropriate to that climate, those living conditions, that weather, uh, the bacteria that are present there, the nature of the fruits, the heating and cooling cycles between day and night. I'm sure cow dung baskets are very suitable and inoffensive to the people who use them. However, here in America, I don't feel like that is valuable to know or be taught or be exposed to, because a 7-year-old isn't going to be able to unpack the complexities of understanding. They're just going to be like, oh, playing with shit is okay. And that is not a failure of their racist brains. It is a pragmatic understanding of what the effects are when underdeveloped and average intellect brains are exposed to concepts and practices that are vastly different than theirs and impossible to explain to an unengaged mind in a second grade classroom where they're much more interested in trying to sneak a bite out of their glue stick without anybody noticing. So I just cut to the chase and I say, I don't want that. And I also think that I should be in turn, mutually respectful of their cultures, and I should get the fuck out of there. I don't need to tell them how to dress. I don't need to tell them how to sing. I don't need to tell them what their TV or their movies should look like. I shouldn't tell them how their food should be. I shouldn't tell them what they can and should export or import. I should not meddle with their politics. I should not install puppet dictatorships. So both will need to go hand in hand for them to be successful. But on the receiving end, because nobody starts off with, what can I give? What can I contribute? Everybody starts with, what can I get? What can I benefit from? So I understand. He doesn't want other cultures. And that's reasonable. I don't see what the problem with that is.
Father was inherently racist, and that thought process moved to you.
Well, I would.
Okay, so it was very interesting here because Nick actually hedged. So, just to recap, your dad was racist. Do you think he passed that racism on to you guys? Because he said that we're not going to certain restaurants because they are black restaurants or they offer black fare or whatever it is. And whereas I don't particularly view Red Lobster, Olive Garden, or whatever as offering black fare, um, I think they actually offer white, watered down slop fare, but our culinary sensitivities or sensibilities aside, let me give you the nice Fuentes response. Nice Fuentes would say, you know what? Again, we're going to go back to cultures. Cultures clearly, throughout all of human history, have shown that they are water and oil. Cultures don't inter, uh, they don't cohabitate, they don't intermingle for large spells of time the same. They just don't. So, if I am a white fuddy-duddy family that, fork and knife with the handkerchief, with the napkin tucked into the collar, if that's the kind of family you are, you want to go to an establishment that has more of those people. The servers and waiters cater to that. The other tables around you look that same way. um, you go out and you say, you know what, we don't raise our voice at the table. We talk quietly. We don't abuse servers. We don't, you know, cause commotions and rackets and all of these things. We just go out. We're low key. We tip our waiter or waitress 7%, and we move on with our day. I ask my wife, Kathy, well, Kathy, how are the kids doing in school? Kathy says, oh, John, they're fine. They're doing well in arithmetic. Very good, Kathy. Thank you for your contribution to this conversation. Now, Junior, tell me, how is arithmetic doing? Well, Daddy, arithmetic is fine. I scored a home run in softball today during PE. It was very fun. Now, pipe down, Junior. That's too much emotion for me. You're getting all mushy. That's that's talk between our four walls at home. You're getting emotional and you're getting very private and intimate. Settle down, Junior. Little daughter Lisa, how was your day? Oh, Daddy, I knitted. I knitted a sock. It's very cute. I think we should put it on our Christmas mantle this year. Now, Lisa, you know that we only use the Christmas decorations that me, ma, and pawpaw gave us that they bought out of uranium plastic that they bought in the 1950s right after the war, you know. That's what you like. That's what you like. It's America. It's capitalism. People are free to choose whatever they want. And if that is a certain culture and you want to pass that certain culture onto your kids, you should be free to do so. And I don't think you should be demonized for doing so. If black people don't want to live around white people and white people don't want to live around black people, that is their personal prerogative. I don't understand why that has to be scrutinized beyond he made a personal choice for his family, a right to which he is entitled, and it doesn't hurt anybody. So the big gotcha is the fact that we're not going to all of that. That's um our our socio-political crime is that we discern the kinds of restaurants we frequent based on cultural norms that we want to uphold. And is that a problem? I don't understand how that's a problem. So what's the big deal? Does that make me racist? Does it make me racist for saying I want tacos from a taqueria that is owned and run by Mexicans who make really good tacos? I know that I'm not going to get um gold star uh 5 course waiters with the shiny silver dome over the plate, served with a Caesar salad tossed table side. And of course, the Caesar dressing is like Kraft or Ken's or something. If I want that, I'm going to go to Cracker Barrel. And I think that if I am a Cracker Barrel kind of person, I should not be demonized for that. So I don't understand. Why should I be forced to, for example, go to a taqueria that is run by an African American family? I'm not gonna go to the Mexicans for fried chicken. I'm not gonna go to a Polish restaurant for falafel. I'm not going to go to a white establishment for I don't fucking know biryani or like a chicken tikka masala. Cultures do their own thing. Preferring a culture, especially one that is closer to my cultural heritage, is completely fine. I don't see what the issue with that is. How is that racist? How is that clan behavior? It's so stupid. Nice, Fuentes.
Extraordinary that you would think the Holocaust could ever be something that we could joke about. Extraordinary that you would think the Holocaust could ever be something that we could joke about.
Why, too soon?
Okay, I'm sorry. I just had to I had to throw that in there because this is where the meat and potatoes for me is, and this is what I am the most excited to. And honestly, I think that on this one, I'm not going to stray too far away because I think that Nick Fuentes was actually too nice Fuentes on this whole thing. So, my only issue with this entire interview is the fact that he didn't go into his bag of information, statistics, data, um, documentation about the Zionist lobbies, control over the media. I mean, this stuff is no longer conspiracy theory. This is well documented. I mean, eh, in a world where Joe Biden, former vice president and former president of the United States, um, you know, says in the early 2000s, were there not, or I think 90s, early 2000s, I can't remember, if there wasn't the state of Israel, we would create a state of Israel. Why is that? How does that benefit the American people? Ted Cruz saying that he came into Congress or Senate or whatever, um, with pretty much the primary intention of being the best advocate for Israel that he could be. When we look at APAC Tracker and we see that historically they have spent APAC, of course, American Israel Political Action Cunts, when they say that when APAC Tracker shows you that they spend hundreds of million, if not billions of dollars lobbying and controlling um, the American government, when you see that they have orchestrated countless false flags, when you see Netanyahu from the 80s onwards till now continually spewing the the whatever doctrine, the Clean Break Act or the Clean Break Memo, saying that they need to overthrow and topple 7 regimes in 7 countries in 10 years or in 5 years or 15, 25 years. And you see that America has just bowed its head and followed complacently and so obediently to work to overthrow every single one of those countries who are verifiably mentioned in a memo post 9/11 that clearly had nothing to do with 9/11, who none of which provably harbored um, a terrorist civilian threat to the United States. Um, it's almost provable at this point that 9/11 was a conspiracy of collusion to uh, basically orchestrate some false pretense to activate this clean break strategy. Um, when you literally see in the past few months Netanyahu come in and say it is very important that we wage war uh, using American media as a weapon against the American people, against the American youth. Um, when the most pro Israel president in America's extremely pro Israel history comes out and says, you know what? One step too far is for you guys to say that you will annex the West Bank. And then, as the vice president of said United States visits their parliament, uh, votes overwhelmingly in favor of annexing the West Bank, which is by all measures, by every UN resolution, by every um, international and even American funded and supported measure, a war crime, uh, illegal, um, and just egregious. They say that they're going to annex the West Bank. The West Bank, who already has a puppet Palestinian Authority uh, overseeing it as nothing but pure Israeli collaborators. When I put all of that in front of you, when I show you that Miriam and Sheldon Adelson spent $100 million to help Donald Trump's election campaign for president in 2024, when you see that the most Zionist pro-Israeli supposed editor or whatever, Barry Weiss, is placed as head of CBS News, a lady with absolutely no qualifications, no journalistic or editorial chops, is placed purely as a leader and enforcer of Israeli propaganda. When you see, I mean, this is undeniable. It is undeniable that the Zionist lobby manipulates media, manipulates popular discourse, manipulates discussions, Why is it that you can't join the FBI or the CIA without visiting the Holocaust Museum? How is that possible? So, for you to tell me any piece of information and cite any mainstream media source, whether you tell me it's 600 or 60 million, I'm going to throw the shade of suspicion and suspect over it. I don't care what they say. They say that they don't bomb hospitals, they bomb hospitals. They say that they do not fight like their enemy, hiding behind and under civilian infrastructure. Iran bombs them, and immediately you find that all of their military command centers are underneath civilian hospitals and civilian infrastructure. Uh, they accuse um, their supposed enemy of sexual assault and misconduct and sexual depravities in times of war. Not one single instance of it is substantiated, and they are found to actually be guilty, provably, with video evidence of the same exact allegation that they accused their enemy of doing. Tell me one single isolated thing that they have ever said that has proven to be accurate to reality. Explain to me one single thing that they have not attempted to use as propaganda. Even the second that Charlie Kirk was shot, the Hasbara machine was running at full tilt. So, this is not a question of Holocaust denial or Holocaust questioning or Holocaust minimization. Again, and Nick Fuentes did say this, the loss of any human life is absolutely tragic. Whether random or absolutely premeditated and motivated by racial and ethnic hatred and bigotry. But when the sources of these claims are provably biased, they are provably just untrustworthy, unreliable, um, and there is just basic questions about the documentation, the narrative immediately thereafter, shortly thereafter, and of course before the Holocaust. I mean, if anything, if there was ever a genocide that demanded or required further scrutiny, unbiased, third party scrutiny, it is this one. And putting that aside, let's take the claims at immediate face value. This has been harped upon time and time again. Why does the Rwandan genocide not get the same coverage, uh, reverence, thoughtfulness, mindfulness? Why does the Holodomor not receive the same? Why does the Bolshevik Revolution not receive the same? So many, I mean, it really is. I mean, if an alien came to Earth from outer space, they are very likely to believe that the Holocaust was the only genocide in the history of humanity. And it is purely unique and perfectly, unprecedented and unrepeated ever since, which we know is not the case. So the second question is, inevitably, to what ends is this propaganda, or is this event, even at its face value, being exploited and is extracted for all that it can to levy unjust, unfair, and illegal privilege to a select minority in the world? Just quantify that for me. Just explain that to me. It doesn't need denial or confirmation. Just, you know what? Somebody did something. Okay? Why are they doing it? Let's strip all information, let's strip all context from anything. Let's remove that they're Jewish. Let's remove that it was the Holocaust. Let's remove that there is Israel. Let's remove that Israel was established illegitimately. Let's just inspect and say there was a bad event that happened, and some people are now using it to some end. What is that end? What are they trying to do? Are they trying to stop it from happening again? Okay. How are they going about that? Are they going about it by, uh, ensuring that there is uh, a minimum of racial bigotry? Are they doing it by championing equality and justice above all else? Are they doing it by championing the rule of law? Are they doing it by striking down apartheid and unjust treatment in every corner of the world and calling it out and selflessly funding its the erasure of injustice and hatred? No, they're doing the polar opposite. They are raping, they are stealing, they are monopolizing, they are jacking up housing prices, they are levying interest, they are objectively dismantling and um, negatively impacting the human condition in every single way. There is no objective improvement to the human condition that can be directly and solely attributed to Israel and the Zionist Jewish lobby. Not one single one. In fact, just an anecdote, or not an anecdote, but a fun little fact that I'll share here. Look up Section 181 of the tax code, the American tax code. Section 181 reads, and I paraphrase, that 100% of contributions made towards the production or creation of a film or cinema are 100% tax deductible, similar to 501c3 charities. If you were to donate to the church, that's 501c3, and as a result, is 100% tax deductible. You donate $1,000, you deduct $1,000 off of your taxes. Section 181 tells you that 100% of contributions up to a limit of something like 15 or 20 million dollars per year are tax deductible. But you can still make revenue off of those contributions. So let's say a movie came out with a budget of 100 million. You and 5 other of your friends put in $20 million each, and you fund it up to $100 million. The movie goes public, it's produced, created, and it makes $600 million. You and your 5 friends get $120 million each, minus, whatever the production costs and all of that. Actually, no, the production costs came out of your initial investment. You are the financial backers at this point, minus whatever royalties you have to pay artists and actors. You perpetually net the revenue that comes off of that tax deductible contribution. Now tell me, who runs Hollywood?
But I'm just curious. On the one hand, there's this terrible genocide going on of white people. On the other hand, you want people effectively to stop going near women because they all turn out to be so ghastly, so they shouldn't presumably procreate. So how does that work? I mean, aren't you, with your rhetoric, actively encouraging men not to associate with these ghastly women, therefore not have any more children? Therefore, you are contributing, Nick Fuentes, to the diminishing white population. I'm confused.
Hey, now this is the part where I think Piers just completely lost the plot, and he just resorted to calling Nick Fuentes a virgin 27 times, which is actually pretty. I mean, not in a sanctimonious and high horse way to say it's disgusting, in a just very pragmatic evaluation of the reality of society in this day and age. It's disgusting to just say that a person who's just kept his dick in his pants and didn't chase after every dick thirsty thought, twerking her ass out in the street, sleeping with 17 different women, getting STDs and fathering children that they're not even prepared to commit to their mothers for more than a month at a time, to then have to take on raising a child for a minimum of 18 to 20 years. Um, no, you know what? We'll take all of those negatives on one side, and then the counter argument to them is just calling people virgin. Virgin? You've never slept with a woman before. How could you possibly imagine what it's like to speak to a woman if you've never slept with a woman before? You cannot evaluate something that you have not put your penis in. You say that taco joint is not good? Well, have you ever stuck your dick in that taco? Huh, virgin. In any case, I'm going to present to you Nice Fuentes. Well, Nice Fuentes, the way that I see it is it's a very logical, sensical argument to say that I refuse to do something, and whether or not I agree with this, of course, is aside from the point, but this is Nice Fuentes. Um, if you take a look at the options that exist in American society and Western society in this day and age, and you see the politicization, the propaganda, the brainwashing, the constant, basically training that popular media does to women, to tell them that on one hand you are being sexualized by men and this should stop, but in the same breath telling them that um, you should go to the most absurd, enormous lengths to display your body and to just reduce yourself to a walking pile of uh, uncovered flesh and just titties and ass walking around. They tell you that um, women shouldn't use their they shouldn't be objectified for their bodies, but then they do every single thing to help you display it and put on display and in front of the world, um, your sexual characteristics. I don't particularly understand it. They tell you that, you know, a woman is so much more than sex, but she should go out and just have sex indiscriminately. Um, sleeping with 50 different people before the age of 25, great thing. You know what? That is more empowering. It is more empowering for you to be run through by the age of 25. And frankly, I mean, again, this is just capitalism. It's open market, it's free market capitalism. Okay? If we're to say that any transaction has a buyer and a seller, and neither are actually losing, they are both gaining. They're just exchanging values. Okay? So a man comes in as a buyer of a woman's company, sexuality, thought, mind, morals, brain, ideals, support, and vice versa for the woman. The woman is receiving those same things. Now, if I were to come and I were to say that, you know what, I want a sedan, I want it with no more than, I want it brand new, I don't want any miles on it. Um, I'm willing to pay this amount of money for it. I need it to have these options, okay? And I refuse to buy it if it has black paint. That's fine. That's my prerogative. Nobody is going to tell me, you know what? It disgusts me that you're refusing to buy a car with black paint. This car right here has feelings and value and emotions. And you know what? You owe it to this car to buy it. That doesn't make sense. You are a buyer and there is a product, and vice versa. You are the product and who you are getting married to is another buyer. And the two have to agree that there is equal exchange of values as they expect and agree to compromise. It is impossible to say that, you know what, one, that a person should just compromise on all values and just say, you know what, since this is the best that there is in this market, I'm just going to drastically reduce my uh, my standards and accept a terribly bad deal. Um, because frankly, the mainstream of women in this day and age are an unacceptable product. And that doesn't make anybody a simp for saying it. I'm married, and I didn't say 100% of women, but the vast majority, and that majority has been mainstreamed and is being reinforced to increase in quantity and in ratio to the total female population. So finding anybody that is outside of those kind of characteristics is becoming increasingly difficult. And it is at least a very salient and acceptable perspective, though clearly it is not my perspective, but I would imagine this is Nice Fuentes' perspective, that, you know what, raising kids who are going to grow up to say, you know what, men and women are perfectly equal. There is no difference between a man and a woman. You know what? They are identical in every way, shape, and form. A lady should be able to go out in shorts that show her flaps if she wants to. Female empowerment, blah, 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 blah. To say that I'm not interested in that, I would rather go without and not have a relationship, not get married, not tie myself to such a flawed partner. Okay, because if you view uh, life and some kind of end goal, some kind of family upbringing as the final, as like That's the light at the end of the tunnel. And a partner in marriage is supposed to be your partner rowing in the same direction. Somebody who is not aligned on your, point of navigation, your North Star, is going to constantly hold you back from where you want to go. And of course, the same accountability should exist for men. If a woman is upholding higher morals and values, okay, then by all means, no, there is no world in which women should accept sexual assault, in which they should accept rape, in which they should accept domestic abuse, in which they should accept um, infringements on their basic rights. Yes, a woman should be educated. Uh, if they please, have a right to vote, do whatever, um, express themselves within the boundaries of morality and, uh, character that is befitting a conservative existence and a non-hypersexualized society, um, and that society's growth and betterment, then absolutely the man should also be a partner and should not hold her back from being that pillar of excellence on which the family and the home is built. No, absolutely. But I think that society isn't telling men that, you know what, you should go out and fuck as many women as possible. To an extent, it is, as evidenced by Piers just browbeating Fuentes with, "You're a virgin, innit? You're a virgin! How could you even be a virgin?" I mean, it's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. In what world are we going to say that um, Piers Morgan claims to be some kind of Catholic or some kind of Christian of some sort? In which scripture does it tell you uh, sleepeth with all of your neighbors, covet thy neighbor's wife? That's not what the scripture says. The scripture, in loose terms, tells you to keep your dick in your pants and to not have sex outside of wedlock and to not father children outside of marriage. And it also tells you in Islam and Christianity and, well, I'm not going to say Abrahamic religions, because we know that there's one that doesn't follow those rules. They rape left and right, even little children. And yes, we understand that Christian priests and whatever, they have their promiscuities. That notwithstanding, their scripture still tells them that you should live conservatively. You should not constantly chase the carnal, to not uh, submit to every base instinct that you have. Um, so, what is that? I mean, explain to me. I mean, on one hand, you are free market capital. On the other hand, you are um, some kind of communist that needs to force a specific worldview on people. And you're talking out both sides of your mouth, Piers, and you're telling us that we should not have the prerogative to choose what cultures we live in, how to manifest our cultures, what morals to have, how to manifest those morals, how to pass them on to children. We should have no say in the women we associate with, how we uh, choose to associate, and to opt out of bad choices across the board. It just doesn't make sense. Make it make sense. Tell me, in what world should I just say, you know what, I don't have the right to exercise any of my free will in any of these scenarios, and I should just do what CNN tells me to do. And then browbeating me 24/7 for being a virgin? It just doesn't make sense. It's the weakest argument that has been put forward in this entire thing. So, in closing, that's nice, Fuentes. Those are pretty much all the points and the arguments and topics of debate that were discussed and were substantive. Again, I think that Nick is he's aware of these points. He knows these points. He's a very smart guy. Extremely smart. And he just came to the fight feeling like, you know what? I'm already the champ. I don't need to throw a punch. I'll slip jabs and bob and weave, and it'll come down to decision. And I already know the judges are the referees, the umpires, the whatever. The judges table is going to vote for me regardless. And I don't know that that's necessarily the case. Even I was kind of like, I mean, this is not doing us a service. This has converted no one. The people who were already on his side are still on his side. And the people who were not on his side, it's made it more difficult for them to come over. And the people who just oppose him flat out, they're still in their same exact bubble of horror and confusion. Whereas I feel at least that if you present the nice Fuentes, you at least have a chance. So that's the video. Fuck off.
They have my politics. In Israel, they want to maintain a Jewish majority. If they had it their way, it would only be Jewish people. They're fighting like hell so the Jewish people can have as much territory, a Jewish state. They can be proudly Jewish in their own land. Whereas in America, we are being besieged by 10 million illegal immigrants in 4 years. And then whites and Christians are going to be the minority. And that's true.
Okay, so I will actually, again, I don't think that he hedged as much on this topic as on other topics, or he presented it as poorly as other topics. But again, it's not for a lack of ability, it's for a lack of interest in doing so. He just didn't feel like he needed to stand up for anything. He just needed to make his opinions known, and they were already so mainstream and accepted that they needed no defense. In any case, so, yeah, this is another point that I just wanted to kind of put a bow tie on this particular Israel issue and topic, is that it would be one thing if the propaganda, the monopoly, the conspiracy, the collusion, all of those things sound like terrible things, but they're just actions. They're Actually, I would say they are more adverbs. They are adjectives that describe a verb, kind of like conspiracy. It is doing something, but doing it with others. Collusion is going around or behind the back of some collective consciousness or collective agreement to pull individual actors to row in some kind of common direction. Subversion is pretty much the same thing. The collective majority, okay, is subverted by a minority that has another agenda. None of those adverbs really they have intonations, they have they suggest something, they have negative connotations, okay, but they are inherently neutral, okay? A person can employ those tactics for a good cause, for a noble cause, for an honorable cause, for the benefit of people. And it would be one thing if Israel was doing that, if they were colluding and conspiring and propagandizing and monopolizing for the betterment of the human condition, to move forward a noble, beneficent cause. They're not. They are doing it to steal land, to wave chickens over their heads, to clip coins, to rape children, to steal homes and land, to enslave the goy, um, to do the same old shit that they've been doing for 3,000 years, that's got them kicked out of 110 countries over 1,000 times. That's an average of 10 per country. That's pretty crazy, isn't it? And at some point, you just have to look into it and say, I mean, it is the age old. If your kid went to 110 schools and was expelled out of every single one of them, is it the school's fault? Or is it the kid's fault? Logic cannot be stumped by being called anti-Semitic. It just does not work that way. So, and I guess like I didn't go through the portion where Piers grilled him on his enthusiasm for Hitler and Stalin. Again, it's one of those things where, oh, this is definitely one of the big things where I was like, dog, like, you can't say it this way. First of all, has there been any unbiased third party? I mean, regardless of whether it's horrific or not horrific, actions took place. There was a context in which they happened. There were factors that exacerbated or ameliorated the situation. There were motives that were done or that were taken into account that propelled those actions. Take each one of those as an individual line item, report on them objectively based on the preponderance of the evidence, meaning the majority of the evidence clearly points to a specific direction, and tell me if Hitler was uniquely and singularly motivated by Jew hatred. And as we continually and growingly are becoming more and more aware of, that does not seem to be the case. It seems to be the case that World War I became a false pretense for Britain to dismantle its largest naval competitor in the world and in the region by so permanently handicapping its financial and socio-political, socio-economic reality, to plunge it into the worst economic reality during the harshest stock market situation in history, to make it so that the citizens of Germany were so indebted and so economically and financially ruined that they pretty much had nothing to lose. And it was very notable that there were also social deteriorations that were so immediately manifest to anybody that is not shackled by political correctness, that they were easily attributable to a specific group. Now, whether that group was the cause of all of the ills or not, it was undeniable. And was he right-minded? I don't think that anybody can say objectively that he was right-minded. But he was motivated by factors that would negatively impact anybody who expected justice and the ability to live an honorable, decent life with an honorable and decent living standard for himself and his fellow nationals. So it's a stupid overcorrection to say, oh, he was fucking cool. But it is the swing of the pendulum that we have seen an innumerable number of times throughout history that anybody will tell you it is perfectly reasonable and expected to see that if you are completely stifled in one direction, you will adopt the polar opposite, almost just to play not devil's advocate, but there's a saying in my language that I don't know how to properly translate, but it is to just be contrarian, to be a contrarian and say that I will so wholeheartedly fling off these shackles, and once those shackles are clearly left behind, then we can take a few steps into moderating our tone and discussion. In the meantime, will there likely be negative consequences, or the possibility of negative consequences socio-politically to the extremism of my rhetoric right now? Yes, but no more so, certainly no more so, and certainly not as detrimental as the socio-political ramifications of the current propaganda and rhetoric and narrative.